Hey, it's very nice to be here. So I just have two things to show. Recently, in a public program at LAX Art called Office Hours, in the academic tradition, but set outside the classroom, artists are asked to offer scheduled one-on-one meetings to follow up on aspects of their own work or any open questions. And a student asked me, what's the most intolerable physical form or obstacle you regularly encounter in your landscape? As a sculpture student interested in public art and culture, for her it was parking garages. I didn't have a quick response, but I had a gut feeling that the question was a good one for a sculptor, and I told her I wanted to come back to the question at the end of our conversation. About 40 minutes later, at the end of our conversation, I could feel my answer gurgling up. My own body, I said. In an accelerated media environment, just sort of an increasing awareness of flimsy mortality, our bodies, this isn't serious, it's kind of funny, our flimsy bodies, often seem the biggest impediment. So her question really stuck with me and left me thinking a lot about impracticality of bodies and sculpture as an obstacle. So watching Antiques Roadshow frame by frame, turns out it can be very compelling as object porn. I left some of the more X-rated images out for the purposes of this talk, but somehow, sorry, there's not a lot of time, somehow, this is perverse in its own way, somehow relieves the anxiety of this momentarily, I found. One particularly unbelievable segment stood out to me as deeply sculptural. So here, identical twin appraisers, the Kino brothers, experts in early American furniture, are looking at a chair made by conjoined twins, Chang and Ang Bunker. The twin appraisers explain that Chang and Ang came to America famously as the Siamese twins in the early 1800s from Thailand, paid to be exhibited as a curiosity during a world tour. They married two sisters in North Carolina, settled, built two identical houses next to each other with two sets of identical furnishings designed for their conjoined bodies. The twins would alternate spending 3 days at each home with each wife and family. They had 21 children between them. Ang was known as the showman and extrovert. Most of his personal belongings have been widely exhibited. This picture is of Ang's chair, which has long since disintegrated. So it turned out that Chang was quite introverted, maybe, I imagine, dragged around by the showman. And few had seen or knew these identical constructed pieces even existed. His set of belongings remained deeply in the family, untouched or exhibited. The twin appraisers were awed to see the other intact chair in undisturbed condition. So this mirroring and multiplying exhibitionism and inversion, interior and exterior spaces, identical and opposing forces, defining seams, sort of a euphoric, dizzying moment of bodily confusion, connection, contagion. This makes me feel really good. I just spend a long time very slowly toggling back and forth. So this is a sculpture by an undergraduate student I had a few years ago at UCSD. Her name was Susan O. Students were encouraged to draw from observation constantly during the first weeks of class. She brought in this tiny postage stamp size scratch of a drawing and said she wanted to build it. Actually, the drawing was really good. It captured some convulsive thing. She'd been sitting behind a woman on her regular bus commute and became fascinated by the tension she saw and the intensity with which this woman tied back her hair. This unstable ride repeated over time behind this gesture, color, and texture drove her to want to make this rather ambitious physical, destabilizing sculpture. And before that, she never really built anything. Her previous experience making was limited to hot gluing bits of stuff into tapestries of sort. The the potential of sculpture education in part maybe comes from meeting somebody at this intersection, I guess if you're lucky, at a drive to find a material physical solution, which from my perspective at least creates the best teaching opportunities to help students improvise and invent their own materials and methods towards developing their own language, hopefully elastic enough to be formed continually, reciprocally, in collaboration with subjects. Here she just sort of took on what she needed to do and developed a lot of very sort of unique ways to find and use material, dyeing industrial, fishing nylon, stitching them into a rubber cap, welding and forming bird feet, and forming a huge spring into a armature for plaster and fang-like hair clip. So trying to make sculpture, I think, is an opportunity to be humbled and maybe awed by the experience of struggling to give form and bodies to ideas through making and practice, which completely tests and reveals what ideas even are. So in closing, abstract language co-evolves with bodily interaction, and perception isn't something that happens to us, it's something that we enact, and the more mutations and expansions one might explore, I think, the better.